resolutions. This is meeting. Minutes. What's going on here? How many resolutions do I have?
Irene, do we have to turn that screen toward us,
Oh, I got 2 resolutions.
toward the audience?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
I
everybody.
think that one you have to lean against the brick wall.
Yeah, just do it just like that. Yeah. Perfect. Great job. Hey, oh no, I'm not going to ask Jean to do it. Jason, can you check? Oh, she's going to, I don't know if she's going to do it. Is she doing it? All right. No, I was going to tell you to move the screen so we can see it. It looks like she's going. Hey, Laurie, can you see that TV screen?
Yep.
Okay. And just wait a little. The video is on.
Videos and mics are on.
Can you see anything, Laurie? Okay.
So we're,
Can you see the TV screen? All right.
okay, are we ready?
Oh, well, wait 1 minute. 1 minute more. I'm just trying to get my papers. Because I think I wrote notes on something and I'm trying to find out where they are. Plans. Too many applications going on here. Oh, is it not? Just wait, let me look for something. I'm trying to find where I wrote notes to ask questions. Well, you know what? I can't find them. All right. What? No, I'll just have to wing it.
Good.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the June 18th Zoning Board meeting. Call to order.
I hereby announce pursuant to Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act that adequate notice of this meeting has been transmitted on January 14th, 2024 by the Board Administrative Officer to the Ashbury Park Press, Two River Times, the Township Clerk, and has been posted in the meeting room in the entrance of the hallway, all pursuant to Section 13 of the Open Public Meetings Act.
Roll call.
Mr. Berkeley,
Present.
Ms. Campus, she's absent. Ms. Gerhardt,
She's on the
on the
telephone.
phone.
Not present, but on phone.
On the phone.
Mr. Luciani,
I'm here.
Mr. Marzocca, absent. Mr. Giampaolo will join us in a few minutes. Mr. Orfanitopoulos,
Here.
Ms. Costello,
Here.
and Mr. Frigiola is absent. Thank you.
Okay, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and then remain standing for a moment of silence for our veterans and first responders.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so we have minutes from June 4th, 2025.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. We have minutes to approve from June 4th, 2025. Any comments, any changes, any revision?
No changes for me.
Nothing. Okay, can I have a motion?
Motion to approve the minutes of June 4th, 2025.
Second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Berkeley,
Yes.
Ms. Gerhardt,
Yes.
and Mr. Orfanitopoulos.
Yes.
Thank you. The minutes for June 4th, 2025 were successfully approved.
Okay, we have two resolutions. The first one is,
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. Resolution number 2025-05, Stephen and Jennifer Rivera, 97 Steelwell Road, Block 10, Lot 21, in the R40A zone, single-family dwelling with variances. Comments in regard to resolution, if any?
okay, Marty, it's yours.
That was submitted to our professionals and the applicant's counsel with one comment, which is made in what you have now. That's the one with the house on that small
Right,
lot.
right. So, we're okay? Everybody's okay with that resolution? I don't think I could vote on that because I wasn't here, right?
You were not here, that's correct.
Okay. Go ahead,
So,
roll call.
Motion and second?
Motion to
Motion.
approve resolution number 2025-05, Stephen and Jennifer Rivera, 97 Stillwell Road, Block 10, Lot 21 in the R48 zone.
I'll second the motion.
Mr. Berkeley?
Yes.
Ms. Gerhard?
Yes.
Mr. Giampolo?
Yes.
Ms. Costello?
Yes.
And for the record, Mr. Giampolo walked in at 7:05.
Thank you.
The resolution for 97 Stillwell Road was successfully approved.
Next one is resolution 2025.06.
Resolution number 2025.06, 774 Holmdel Road, installation of 20 by 40 in-ground pool with bulk. Any
Marty?
comments, please?
That was the pool with free frontage on three streets, if you
Right.
remember. There were
No special conditions?
Except for the as-built, which I think is a requirement anyway.
Okay. Can I have a motion?
Motion approve number 2025-06, Adrian Skirty, 774 Holmdel Road, Holmdel, New Jersey.
Second? Who was here
I'll
for that?
second.
Lori, second.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Roll call?
Mr. Berkeley?
Yes.
Ms. Gerhart?
Yes.
Mr. Luciani? Yes. Mr. Giampolo?
Yes.
And Ms. Costello?
I wasn't present for that one.
Oh, sorry, apologize. Then that would be it. So resolution number 2025-06 for 774 Holmdel Road, Adrian Shkurti, was successfully approved. Thank you.
Hopefully they'll get their pool by this year. Okay, next item, public hearing.
Zoning Board application 2024-5, St. Mina Coptic Orthodox Church, 134 State Highway 34, Block 17, Lot 12, R40B zone, preliminary and major site plan approval with C variances, D1 use variances. The applicant is seeking approval to construct a recreational facility.
Okay,
Please, Mr. Alfieri.
Before we get started, we need to swear in one of our professionals.
I'm just gonna swear both in for the record, since Nikhil wasn't there at the last meeting, right? So just for the record, you swear and affirm the testimony you're about to give in this hearing is the truth, nothing but the truth? So for the record, our professionals have been sworn and resworn, and Mr. Alfieri, I believe Mr. Collins has been sworn and still is on the oath.
Click the bottom, there's a switch on the bottom where you can slide it and it'll stay.
Also, Mr. Chairman, for the record, we will sit Ms. Costello instead of Ms.
Yes.
Campus.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good point.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Salvatore Alfieri, Cleary, Giacobi, Alfieri, Jacobs, on behalf of the applicant. We were last here in April and presented testimony from a couple of witnesses. At that time, we advised the board when it was carried to tonight that our operations person from the church was not going to be available tonight. But we did agree to bring back the architect and the engineer, both of whom needed to be cross-examined. The architect also, since the last meeting, submitted new exhibits, which we're going to get into momentarily. And then the engineer, there were a couple questions that were raised at the last meeting that were engineering related that the engineer wasn't present to respond to, so we're going to have him, two board questions. We're going to have him respond to those and summarize his testimony, and then, of course, both would be subject to cross-examination and questions from the public.
Okay, that sounds like a plan.
Thank you. So, first, we're going to ask our architect, again, just for the record, to identify yourself.
David Collins.
And Mr. Collins, as you indicated, you testified previously. Since the last time you testified, you did make a submission to the board of 3 new exhibits. Is that correct?
That's correct.
You want to
Okay,
bring
so
that up?
would you run we're gonna need
Before
to
he
mark
starts.
them as you go through them, but can you run through for the board and the public, each of the exhibits?
Certainly.
I'll ask in a minute.
And we're up to A8 on my records.
So what are you gonna provide us, a flash drive with that for those?
These were submitted.
So that we don't have to mark them.
Okay.
Are you gonna mark them at all then?
If you submit it as part of their application,
Okay, so then, no.
That we're good.
Okay, fine. So you'll just then identify each one as you testify, please.
Certainly. So this is exhibit A3.
You're gonna have to bring that mic close to you.
Best place to put this. This is exhibit A3. This is a revised sheet A2.01 from the original set. And the revision to this drawing is the mezzanine in the gymnasium. Previously, we had some seating and storage for this area, which we've now revised. We're taking the seating out of the mezzanine, and it will be used as part of the gymnasium for exercise and possibly some ping pong tables just for kids to play on. But it will no longer be used as a seating area. So that's the revision to this sheet. The next sheet is a new sheet, and this is a roof plan. The board planner had asked us to do this. This was related to a discussion about screening mechanical equipment. So I'll just run through it very quickly. Again, this is a roof plan. Last time we spoke, we talked about this equipment yard. The area above this equipment yard is 2 stories. The area below the equipment yard is 2 stories. So we have screened these other 2 walls to create a equipment yard on what is the second level of the building. And we've also shown the location of the equipment screens, and you can see that they're pulled in from the exterior facade. They're stepped back so that they'll be partially blocked from line of sight by the parapet wall. So there's one over the classroom wing, there's one over the gymnasium, and there's one over the stage area. And to follow through on those revisions on the, again, Exhibit A3, Sheet A1.01, we're showing the screen of the equipment yard. This is a metal screen. Let me zoom in a little more. This is a metal screen that's backed with acoustic panels to absorb any sound from any of the equipment that's on the roof. So you see the equipment would sit behind this screen and obviously be screened on both sides. So this is facing our neighbors to the north, the screen that we're looking at here. We're also showing the screen facing Route 34 over the library. In the distance, you can see the screen for the gymnasium and the screen for the over the theater. And then the last change that we've made since our last meeting is we've reduced the size of the cross to be a compliant size for a sign. Our sign for the St. Mina Center, we're still asking for relief from that. We looked at it to see what it would look like at 12 square feet, and because of how far it's set back from the street, it is so small on the facade that it's ineffective. So we're asking, to leave that at the size that we originally proposed, but we're reducing the size of the cross to be compliant. Both of them still need relief for the height that they're mounted at, but we are reducing the size of one cross.
The board, also at the last meeting, there was discussion about the glass and the possible frosting of windows. And I know you didn't submit something in advance of tonight, but you do now have an exhibit to show the board and the public, correct?
Correct.
So we're gonna need to mark that, and then you'll have to either hand Irina the disc and or email it to her.
Lori, can you hear okay? Lori? She wasn't muted us.
Not great. It's better on Facebook Live, even though it's delayed, because it's very scratchy, his voice. I can hear very little.
Okay, so again, we have one board member who's on the phone, so you have to keep the mic like Right
really
about there.
close, like this. Is
Yeah.
that better?
Yeah,
That's much better, yeah.
Okay,
she'll be
great.
able to hear it.
Great. If I could, I'd like to pass a sample up for the board members to see. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
I will just keep this as a testimony after.
This is 8, are we 8?
No, we have to keep as an 8A, 8.
So we reached out to 3M, the architectural film division, and we looked at several types of frosting films that could be applied to windows. And the one that we think does the best job is this one that is slightly tinted and frosted. In Exhibit A8, I'm going to start on the right side, drawing number 2. We took this picture and looked outside, and the idea of this picture is to show how obscured the view is. So if you were in a classroom, and let's say there was no buffer, and you were looking at the neighbors, you can see that there's no way to make out any shapes. You can see the pool disappears, the trees disappear. You don't see anything with this film on the windows.
This is A9, these photos are,
I think it's all part of A8.
oh, it is.
That's in the package we got?
That's new.
It's all new.
Oh, so we don't have any of this?
Well, we'll need that, we'll need these, the thumb drive with this stuff.
No problem.
Okay,
Or-
we're calling it all part of A8, the whole window package.
I'll take that.
Yeah.
I keep that. Thank you.
Okay, so drawings 1 and 3 on this exhibit, we stacked these purposely. But what I tried to do here was take the same photo of the light fixture, obviously without the film, and then with the film in front of it, and you can see, looking directly at a light source, how diffused that light becomes. So if we frost these, the windows that face our neighbors, that light will be knocked down and flattened out and dispersed and diffused the way you see in the bottom photograph.
So every window facing the neighbors, since we keep referring it that way, will have this applied to it.
So we certainly are willing to do all the windows on the sides, anything that faces the neighbor. What we'd really like to do, if the board is open to it, is make it a condition that since these frosting film is applied after the windows are installed, it's not integral to the window, it's applied. What we'd really like to do is to have an on-site and really see if we're correct about the buffer and if there is no light and no sight lines through that buffer. We're willing to put it on all the windows, but it does reduce the amount of natural light into the building, so we'd like the opportunity to see that it's absolutely needed.
How would we determine that until the building is up?
Well, that's when we would do it. We could make it a condition of certificate of occupancy or something like that.
So that's something my engineer would have to do, because we wouldn't be doing an on-site. Right? Is that okay with you, Bill? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
And then one final point is, at the last meeting when you testified, you gave a building capacity number that was not accurate, and we just want to get the record straight as to what you said and why, and then what the actual number is and why.
Okay, so I made a mistake the last meeting. When I was discussing occupancy load for the building with my client, it was a bigger conversation about septic and number of people on the site. And the building, the main church that's there today has 800 people, and we're proposing those same 800 people will be using this same building. I made the mistake of adding those two numbers together, but the congregation has about 800 people, and I counted essentially the same people twice. So the 800 people that use the church are the same 800 people that will use this building.
And is that, and then in addition, so I think you also mentioned there was then, for the classroom capacity, there was 260 people. And the
Yep.
second floor capacity had about 1,300 people. So
So-
that's in addition.
No.
How do those numbers tie in?
No, they're not related technically.
Okay.
So what happens is we're bound by the building code when we do occupancy loads for buildings, for life safety, for egressing, for all of those life safety issues. We're required to use multipliers that are in the code, and those multipliers are set to be conservative, just to make sure that if for some reason a building has a larger capacity, that it's still safe for those people. The numbers that you're referring to are based on the building code requirements, and my drawings, if we get past this stage, have to go to the building department and have to show compliance with the occupancy load requirements of the building code. So I'm required by law to use those numbers. But we're talking about separate from the building code, we're talking about the actual usage, and there'll be more testimony to this, about the operations. The reality is that the 800 people that are there are the 800 people that will be using the building.
Okay, so we're not expecting the classrooms and the multi-purpose room to tie in any additional people?
No, it's the same people.
Same 800?
So
Okay.
are you saying 800 at one time or throughout a day or what? How
Well,
is-
well, it could be possible that you could have an event with 800 people in the gymnasium. The gymnasium's obviously large enough to handle something like that. If there was a religious lecture or they were doing something like that, it would be, I think, the only place the entire congregation could gather as one group would be that gymnasium.
Okay, so you're referring to it as basically an auditorium, not as a athletic event.
Right, it's multi-purpose, right, so, right, exactly, right. So we have the stages there, and so there's more than just, basketball or another sport being played there. It could be that they just have a meeting or something,
A large event.
a larger event for
But
the
the
congregation.
maximum capacity based on the mathematics is 800 people.
Based on the congregation and their use is 800 people,
Right,
yes.
but
And we'll
the building codes are going to allow 800?
the building code allows much more than that.
Okay.
1,600.
No, much more than that. And I testified to this last time. I believe it's just shy of 3,400 people that by building code numbers you can do. And the reason why that gets inflated is because when you have a multi-purpose room, you have to apply a lot of different standards to it. If people are just sitting in chairs, obviously that's much more concentrated than if people are playing basketball. And so we have to design for that case if people were sitting in chairs, in rows and chairs, because that's the potentially most hazardous condition for egressing.
So how many people would be sitting in chairs if that's the case for, let's say, a concert or something?
800 people.
800 could fit sitting in chairs in a row, like an auditorium.
Yes.
And if they had tables in there, I don't know, 8 to a table, 10 to a table, did you do that math too?
I could do it roughly for you
Okay.
if you don't.
And while he's doing that, keep in mind that the applicant is also willing to stipulate that on-site, that means church and rec building, if this were built, 800 people max on-site. That would be the limit, that if the board were to grant this approval and impose a condition, the condition would be never to exceed that maximum.
And how is that going to be enforced?
Well, it's like any other condition the board imposes. Plus, we have parking, so it's going to be, to park more than that would be difficult. So, but that would be like any other condition that would
So the parking, I know that's a different subject. When you're talking about parking, you're saying that once the parking lot fills up, the church, nobody else is coming in there? They're not parking on Route 34 or anything like that?
they're not allowed to,
Okay,
so.
maybe we'll
Wait,
put,
what about parking on the lawn of the church? Right.
what about on the lawn?
Route 34.
I can't answer that. We'd have to let one of the operation people,
Right, but do you want us to pay conditions that that's not going to happen, to keep this number at 800?
We're willing to stipulate that 800 is the number, but again,
right.
I'd have to speak to the operation people about how that's parked. I'm not sure they ever had 800 on site, so I'd have to ask.
I don't know.
I don't
Well,
know.
maybe when the Patriot came.
Maybe. We'll find that out. When the operation person comes at the next hearing, he or she will have all that info.
Okay, all right.
But go ahead, you
Continue.
you did a calculation?
Sorry, if you use the code requirements for table and chairs, which is 15 square feet per person, the number is 1,162 people.
There's more people sitting on the tables
No.
than as an audience?
No, there are, you want me to do the code numbers for each of the
No,
situations?
I'm just trying to hear the numbers
Yeah.
for different events.
Okay, so
So the tables should be less people in the gym.
by the code, it is less. So if you did chairs, you would use 5 square feet per person.
This is building code, it's not.
I know, that's what we're going by.
That's, yeah, we didn't even run those numbers. That's almost 3,400 people
That's what
just
I was
there.
figuring.
Yeah. We didn't set it up like
So
that.
so what you're saying is that you would never get to that number because you're gonna
Correct.
max it out at 800.
That's correct, exactly.
So they would basically turn them away.
Correct.
Okay. We're putting this in as a condition? Okay. All right, continue.
That's all we have, Mr. Chair, of the architect.
Okay, so now we're gonna open it up to questions. So, let me ask my board professionals first if they have any follow-up questions, and then we'll move over to Mr. Simon, and then when he's done, hopefully in a reasonable time, we'll open it to the public for questions. And that's of this witness that just spoke, not anything else but questions of this witness. Go ahead,
Mr. Chairman, I have no questions for this witness.
okay?
I wanted to follow up on 2 questions with the applicant. The first one is pertaining to the revisions that were most recently done relating to the equipment yards on the roof indicated in the roof plan. I just wanted to confirm with the applicant that the ordinance requires that mechanical equipment, HVAC, equipment of that nature may exceed the permitted height of the building by up to 25% or 15 feet, whichever is less. So I just would like the applicant to confirm that that is conforming, and that is what the plan proposes.
It is conforming, referring back to sheet A 1.01 of Exhibit A5. We actually drew the line in with that exception that you're citing, and we are compliant with that height.
Thank you.
Is that
And
it?
the second question I wanted to ask is related to a comment we made, my office made in our review letter, referring to some of the more blank facades along some of the elevations. But I do believe that in the last hearing, testimony was provided that essentially the reason for that condition is to prevent light from coming into the stage area. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Next, Mr. Simon. Can you give us a rough idea if you got a lot of questions, a little bit?
I have not a little bit,
Okay,
not
all right.
not all night.
I had one question before you start, Mr. Simon. With regards to the changes, you said you removed the seating from the mezzanine area of the gymnasium. Any reason why you did that?
The church talked to me after the last meeting. We had a meeting, and they don't want any seating up there.
If I can just ask one question, the screen that we talked about on the window, the filtering, that's not in lieu of any of the landscape buffering that was separately discussed.
No, it's
correct?
not.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question about the sign?
Go ahead. I think they can hear you. Can you hear? About
Can
a
you hear
sign?
me?
I hear you. Can
Yes,
you hear her?
I can
Go
hear
ahead.
her, yes.
Go ahead, Lori.
I know that they still want to keep the lighted sign at 12 feet. My concern is, again, if this building is only for congregant use, why would you need the lighted sign? I would presume they would know where their church is.
Yeah, we talked about this last time, and you know, there are a couple of situations that we know that someone from outside the church will be there. We know that there's a men's basketball league that other churches play there, so there is that situation, and there is the idea that if there is an emergency in the building, it's good to have a sign on the building, especially a site that has multiple buildings, so there's no delay. They know exactly where to go. If someone calls 911, they can say we're in the St. Mina Center, and the police or fire can go directly to that building.
Or EMS.
Yep.
So as just a follow-up, then you are anticipating that more than just the congregants, the 800 members, will be using these facilities?
Yes, I believe that.
Can we hold that for operations, so it's a more, he's only speaking third hand.
Can you hear that, Lori?
No,
He
I'm
wants to,
sorry.
he wants to hold your question till we have operations testify.
That's fine.
Okay, just write it down so we remember.
I will.
Okay. Anything else from board? Okay, Mr. Simon, go ahead. Okay, go ahead.
Just one more follow-up question regarding the signage I forgot to mention earlier. So in our letter, we mentioned that the proposed wall sign or both the signs are proposed to be mounted from the elevations. It is depicted to be at 24.58 feet and 21.25 feet. I just wanted to make one clarification. The elevations for the St. Mina Center sign depict a height of 21.25 feet, and the sign table has a small difference. I just wanted to clarify which one is the proposed sign height.
Yeah, our sign shown on the elevation is correct at 21 feet 3 inches. We accidentally had 21 foot 5 inches on the chart, and we'll update the chart later. But it's a 2-inch error there, but it is 21.3.
Good catch. Okay. Anything else? Go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, sir.
Identify yourself again.
Rob Simon from Herald Law.
Before you start, the
Yep.
folks that's standing in the back, why don't you grab, there's plenty of seats here in the front. I know you kids are not used to sitting in the front, but it's not a punishment. Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
Sir, good evening. At the last meeting, I had asked you some questions about your experience in designing other church gymnasiums, and I believe you referenced that you worked on St. Leo and Lincroft. Is that correct?
Our firm did, yes.
And also St. Thomas and Somerset?
Yes.
And since I asked you those questions, had you had the occasion to do any further investigation to refresh your recollection as to the size of those gymnasiums, both in square feet and also in ceiling height?
I was not able to look at the drawings from St. Leo's the Great. That was a while ago, and I couldn't put my fingers on those drawings. I did look at St. Thomas Church, and I was asked about the size of it, and so I went back to check the square footage, and that building was closer to 25,000 square feet.
When you say that building, what was the building comprised of for 25,000 square feet?
The building is a sanctuary with some offices and a glass connecting link to a fellowship hall, and in the fellowship hall there's a single basketball court, commercial kitchen, and 2 stories of CCD rooms or classrooms.
Okay. How does the size of that basketball court compare to the size of the basketball court that you're proposing here in Homedale?
Well, the courts are the same size, but the area for the gymnasium is much smaller at St. Thomas.
And how much smaller?
I believe the fellowship hall is about 10,000 square feet. A piece of that is the classrooms, which are stacked. So it's maybe 7,000 square feet versus the gymnasium is about 17,000 square feet here. A little over 17,000 square feet here.
Okay, so more than double.
More than
here.
double, yes.
Okay. And with regard to St. Thomas and Somerset, that I had an opportunity to take a look at that property, and that property is not located adjacent to any residential properties, correct?
The property is located adjacent on the driveway side to the right along the main road, along Elizabeth. There's a resident there. She came out to the meeting, so I remember that clearly. And I believe there are residents across Elizabeth that are there. The building is set back on the site, but there are residential properties
Right.
there.
And do you remember how many feet the property is set back from the road there?
I don't. Several hundred feet.
Several hundred feet. And with regard to St. Leo, located in Lincroft, that you also worked on. That you don't recall the size of the gymnasium for that property, correct?
I don't know.
And is it fair to say that that property is located across the street from an Acme supermarket and a retirement community?
On the west side, it's across from a shopping center and a retirement community. On the east side, it backs to residential properties.
And with regard to the grade change from this property to the residential properties to the north, did you have an opportunity to further assess what the various grades are at various areas of both this site and also the neighboring residential sites?
I don't have any information on the grades on the residential properties. I have walked that buffer, and I know that those properties are roughly 5 or 6 feet higher than generally our property.
When you say the property is 5 or 6 feet higher, what are you basing that on, and in what area did you make that determination based on?
It is just based on my visually walking in the buffer. I went to check the buffer, and walking through that area, I could see the grade change. It's pretty obvious there. The number might not be exact, but that's an estimation.
Okay. And what about beyond the buffer? Doesn't the property topography change again?
I'm sure it changes. Topography is almost always
Right.
changing.
Do you know how it changes? Whether it gets higher or lower at that point?
My recollection is there's probably a slight grade upward going into the residential sites, but it seemed relatively flat to me, but probably some uphill grade.
But you didn't look at any topo maps to confirm that for the residential properties,
No,
correct?
I don't have any topo information on the residential properties.
And with regard to your design, it's possible, based on the site plan, for folks to enter through various doorways adjacent to the gym area, correct? I guess that's to the west?
From the foyer to the gym, you're saying?
Yes.
Yes, there are multiple doors there.
And so if somebody parks in the parking lot, there's numerous ways to enter the building facility, correct?
There's a main entry with security at the main entry, and that would be the main entry for people to enter the building.
But there's other doors there where people can enter the building as well.
Those doors are egress doors that are required by code for exiting purposes. There is the loading area, so yes, that door can be used to bring products into the building. But the idea is that our main entrance is the security point, and that's where people come into the building.
Okay, so
That's the
there's-
entrance.
So there's, other than that plaza, that's the plaza entrance?
Yes.
Other than the plaza entrance, there's going to be no other doorway that is utilized for ingress to this building. Is that what you're saying?
That's my understanding, except for loading. The loading is by the gymnasium.
And with regard to, you mentioned even tonight about basketball leagues, did you do any investigation as to the sizes of the gyms that are utilized by other teams in that basketball league?
No,
And you aware even of what the name of the basketball league is?
I don't know.
And you don't know how many parishes are participating in that league, correct?
I don't.
And you don't know anything about that league in terms of the hours when those teams play in other gyms other than the subject facility, correct?
I don't.
And with regard to, you had talked about during your direct examination about the tree buffer. Did you do any type of investigation yourself as to whether any of those trees that are currently within the buffer area are dead, diseased, or dying?
I don't. I'm not an arborist or a landscape architect. I wouldn't know that.
Okay, so when you
information.
talked about a buffer and that there's going to be a nice buffer, that's for another witness, that's not for you, correct?
Correct.
And you haven't provided to the board any photos from the building area, either at ground elevation or at a higher elevation, looking at my client's properties, correct?
Correct.
And as the architect on the project, did you do any type of investigation to assess the extent to which the neighboring properties will be able to see those stadium sports lights from their properties, either within their homes, outside their homes, on their decks, or walking around their properties?
I did not.
And you have no experience in terms of issues such as dark sky compliance, correct?
I understand the very basics, but I'm not a lighting engineer. No, I don't know all the rules.
And you didn't provide any expertise into determining the type of lights, the shielding involved with the lights, or the light source, correct?
Correct.
And did you, my notes reflect that there was potentially a balloon test that was conducted for this property. Are you familiar with that?
I'm familiar with the discussions last time, yes.
Okay, was there are you aware of whether a balloon test was actually conducted?
I'm not aware.
Well, that's something that we do when we do an on-site visit, which we probably will do at some point. And we will ask the applicant to put balloons up to show the different heights of the buildings and different corners. So we will be doing that.
Thank you. And in terms of beyond the lighting, the proposed fencing and associated netting around the soccer field, you didn't provide any expertise in terms of location, height, or type of netting in connection with this application, correct?
We did do some research to look at the different types of nets that were available, and we chose one that we think is appropriate for this site. That's, as I've testified before, is 20 feet tall. It's a black net, and then we're putting black chain link on the bottom.
And what research did you do to determine that a 20-foot tall black netting for 7-on-7 soccer at night is appropriate?
I didn't do any direct research. I know that by reading the literature of several of the manufacturers, that was a standard height that is used for these kinds of sports. They called that out, but I didn't do any kind of calculations on my own.
Okay. And when you say based on the literature and that was called out, is that for a 7-on-7 church field that you're proposing here?
No, it was not that specific, no.
Okay, so that was that 20-foot tall netting also applicable for high school or college soccer 11-on-11 fields?
The literature was more general about the sports that it was appropriate for, and soccer was on the list. That's why we used it, but it didn't. I don't recall it ever saying something specific to the level of play or the age of the people playing.
And you, I don't mean to jump around a little bit, but tonight you showed these proposed frosty windows, and I believe you provided an exhibit where you were showing that, or you were trying to demonstrate that from inside the building, if somebody looked out the window, that they wouldn't be able to see the residential properties because of the frosting. Was that what you were trying to demonstrate?
Yes.
A couple questions. First of all, did you do any type of assessment to determine what the neighbors would see if there's lights on inside the building and the frost material was on those windows looking from the outside?
Yeah, so drawing number 1 and drawing number 3 on this exhibit, I believe it's A8, was trying to show a direct light source and the effects of applying film to it. So the idea would be someone on the outside, when they're looking at drawing number 3, you can see how diffused that light becomes. That really bright white light source gets knocked down and diffused.
Right, but you're going to still be able to see shadows of people and things from the outside looking in, correct? Especially with the light source on the inside, right?
If there were no buffer, yes.
And with regard to the glare from the lighting that's going to be on the on the building itself. Okay, can you just go over where the mounted lights are going to be on the buildings? Excuse me. Where the lighting is going to be on the building as it's facing the residential properties.
That lighting is in the engineer's drawings. He might be better at pointing that out to you.
That's fine. Did you participate in determining location, style, type, height of any of that building mounted lighting?
I had several discussions with the engineer and the landscape architect about some of the exterior lighting, some of the bollard lighting, the styles of them, but I don't recall if I selected the exact style of the building mounted sites. That's building mounted lights, sorry.
And with regard to any lighting on the north side of the building that is not mounted on the building, did you participate in determining those types of lights?
Not directly. Most of our conversations had to do with the plaza area and some of the landscaping in the plaza area.
And with regard to, I believe you testified at the last hearing about the selection of artificial turf as opposed to natural grass on the soccer field, correct?
I think I spoke about it a little bit, yes.
Right. Did you participate in determining, as the architect, to use artificial turf as opposed to natural grass or another type of surface for that soccer field?
The discussions we had about the turf was that if we used artificial turf, it would be easier to maintain.
And do you have any experience in terms of maintenance of artificial turf?
I don't.
And do you have any experience in the use of artificial turf in terms of how hot it gets during the summer and issues associated with that for young children playing on it?
I don't.
And I may have asked this to you last time, and I apologize. In terms of the windows, particularly on the north side of the building facing the residential properties, are any of those going to be operational where you can open and close them, either lifting them by a lever or by some other means?
No, all of our windows are fixed windows, storefront windows.
And with regard to the new revision pertaining to the mezzanine level and providing exercise and pool tables, ping pong tables in that mezzanine area, who's intended to utilize that? Do you know?
The congregants.
Okay, do you know at what points? Like, is that part of the basketball, or is that more for operations? So?
I think operations could probably answer that better than me.
I see that you still have both bleachers at the turf field as well as bleachers on the inside of the basketball court. Do you know what the capacity is for seating for each or both?
I don't know what the capacity is for the bleachers that we showed, that are shown on the site plan at the soccer field. Actually, I think they're both shown on both of our drawings. I don't know the capacity. Oh, I do. So the maximum capacity of those are 50 people each, and that's just based on the size of them, the length of them.
When you say 50 people each, what are we talking about? The soccer field?
Yes, I have it on the screen.
Okay,
yes.
so that's a total of what? How many people? 150?
Yeah, I believe there's just 3 here, yes.
Right, so the capacity of spectators just sitting in the bleachers at the soccer field is 150 people. And what about on the inside for the basketball court?
What we did on the basketball court is the court floor is lower than the main lobby floor, and so we made some kind of built-in steps, kind of like a little bit of an amphitheater, that if for example, the men's league was playing and a couple people wanted to sit down, they could sit in this area. So some of these areas, like I'm pointing to here, that are directly across from the stairs are actually steps. And then these are just multi-tiered levels where a few people can sit. I never really contemplated the total. It was more about the way the openings were made in that wall and creating a way to get down to that lower level.
Okay, so you don't know what the capacity is for seating for the basketball
Not right
courts.
now, no.
And getting back to the soccer court, or the soccer field, excuse me, are you familiar with any other 7-on-7 soccer field that is lit in the county?
I'm not aware.
Are you aware of any 7-on-7 soccer field that is lit in the state of New Jersey?
I'm not aware of any 7-on-7 fields anywhere that are lit. I have no idea. I have no information on 7-on-7 courts at other places.
And you're not equipped as an architect to perform any type of acoustic or noise assessment of children playing outside at night with whistles and horns and audible sounds of that nature.
I'm not
correct?
an acoustic engineer, no.
And you talked. Let's move on. You had an exhibit tonight where you showed screening of the mechanicals on the roof, correct?
Yes.
And I noticed that you have not proposed any particular mechanicals within those areas, at least not on the plans, correct?
Correct.
Have you or anyone else on the developer team done any type of acoustic or noise evaluation as to the noise that's going to be emitted from that equipment and how much these acoustic screens are going to mitigate or buffer that noise, both during the day and at night?
The mechanical equipment has not been selected yet because the construction drawings haven't been started yet. So the mechanical engineer will be selecting those equipment later in the process if we move beyond here. So we don't have any information yet because those items haven't been selected yet.
And with getting back to the lighting, I neglected to ask you that you don't have any expertise as an architect to determine what the appropriate light height, number of luminaries or stanchions for a particular outdoor sporting event, correct?
Correct.
Or any type of related safety impacts based on the determination of the height, style, size, or location of that sports lighting, correct?
Only in my work with Musco Lighting, the manufacturer of the lights we're proposing. I relied on them as the experts in the light levels and heights for the poles and those things.
But you have no independent knowledge as to any of those issues, correct?
No.
You talked about a control system to automatically turn the lights on and off. Do you have direct experience with that?
I don't have direct experience, no.
And you have no idea as to the anticipated use of either the basketball courts or the soccer court, correct?
No, it's an operations question.
And I asked you last time about a number of questions about the existing facility at the property. And you had, I believe, told me that you had not been inside the facility.
No, I did not say that. I said I did walk through the facility. There's one area, the basement level of the original church I was not in, but the rest of the building I did walk through.
And the church area that you were in, is there a reception or catering area there currently?
I know that there is a commercial kitchen in that building, yes.
Okay, but what about an area for folks to have a banquet or a reception?
Again, my understanding from the church is that's what happens in that basement room, but I didn't have any direct witness of that space to say that that's what it was.
And in terms of the basement room is a room that you were not in, you're saying?
That's correct. It's the
Okay.
one room I did not get into.
Did you, since my questioning, ask the development team for any type of plans or information as to that basement area, and particularly with regard to the capacity of that basement area for receptions or events?
No.
And you have not provided any type of colored renderings of the proposed facility from the common property line with the residential properties, correct?
Correct.
With regard to the, and I apologize for not asking this question before, the frosting material that you presented for the first time tonight, did you do any type of investigation to determine whether through wear and tear, depreciation, or what have you, that the frosty or the screening elements lose their properties over time?
I don't believe they lose their properties, but I'd have to check with 3M on that.
And 3M is who?
The manufacturer.
And you haven't done an evaluation, you talked about reducing natural light into the building. You haven't determined the extent to which that occurs, correct?
We looked at the, last time we were here, we looked at using gray glass, and I know some of that information. This frosting film, I don't have with me any information from the manufacturer on the percentage of visible transmission that is knocked down by that.
And when you said this evening that the capacity of the main church is 800 people, and the same 800 people will be using this new building, what is the basis of that statement?
A conversation with my client.
Other than a conversation with your client, do you have any other independent information that leads you to believe that that is the case, or will be the case?
But the math in the operation statement, which is also in the planner's report, reinforces that idea.
So the there's going to be no visitors that are going to be coming to this new building?
I wouldn't say that. I don't know if there'll be visitors. So I think an operations question too.
And in terms of, there were some questions about enforcement. The chair actually asked the question about how to enforce a maximum of 800 people. Have you ever been involved in a application where the applicant had to enforce a maximum number of people in the building?
Well, every building has to be enforced at a maximum occupancy, though. But I can't recall a project I did where there was a number as part of a resolution. No, I can't recall one now.
And I don't know if you can answer this question, but I'm going to ask it. You provided some numbers, whether it's 3,400 people that could be there in this building per building code, for example. How much smaller would this building need to get so that the building itself would have a maximum capacity of, let's say, 800 people that you're testifying to?
In terms of the building code?
Yes.
I can't really answer that now because there are so many different uses inside this type of building, and each of those uses has a different multiplier. You'd have to start reducing some areas in different ways to try to get, to try to manufacture a number like that. So I can't really do that here tonight.
Okay. And you don't have any operations knowledge as to who's going to be using the various areas of the building or when, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I have nothing further for this witness at this time, thanks.
Wow, that's pretty good.
I told you.
I was debating to cut you off at 8 o'clock, so.
Well, maybe I'm clairvoyant, too.
Yeah. So, I thought of a few more questions that I'd like to ask you.
Sure.
I wear another hat. I'm a volunteer for the first aid squad in
great.
town. And I don't know why I didn't think of it beforehand, but I'm concerned about how we're going to get a stretcher in there into the various locations. So you have second floor classrooms, you have an elevator, I believe, going up there.
We do.
And what's the size of that elevator?
We'll make the elevator big enough for a stretcher.
Okay. Then going up to the area where the ping pong tables were, I heard you mention, the mezzanine. It looks like I only see stairs going up there. So we
That-
have to go up by stairs?
That's right. That area is not directly connected to the second floor of the main part of the
No,
building.
I can see that. Okay, and then you mentioned that the gym is actually below the lobby level.
Yes.
So if somebody got hurt on the gym floor, how would we get to them with a
So,
stretcher?
on down towards the bottom of this drawing, referring to sheets A2.01 of A3, there is a loading area that is at the elevation of the gym floor. There are double doors there. There's also an overhead door there, so it'd be very easy to take someone out of that level on in a stretcher or anything else.
Okay, so I see two trucks. Are you talking about the one that's backed right up to the building?
No, I'm talking about the one that's I'm pointing to here on the screen. It's to the
Oh, I'm
left.
sorry.
That driveway comes in at grade, so these two doors here are at the level of this gymnasium, so
Right.
you can come straight in.
So if I'm backing up with my ambulance back there, you're saying that when I drop down to the tire level or the ground level, it's going to be even with the gym?
Correct. The driveway is even with the gym, the
So-
pavement.
So those double doors I see back there, right there, that's even with the grade of the outside and even with the gym?
That's correct. And also, just so you know, from the main lobby area, there's a ramp system here, so
A
you could
handicap
come.
ramp.
Yep, you could come from the main entrance, and you could go right down this ramp
You
as
know how
well.
wide that is?
It's going to be 3 feet wide for the code.
Okay, can it go to 4 feet?
I don't think it can, because you have to be at a certain distance for grabbing the handrails.
All right, okay. Let's see.
Does that have a
That covers my EMS question. So the elevator, you're gonna look into the size of the stretchers we use. I think it's about 6 or 7 feet long, and make sure it could fit in there.
Sure, yes.
What's
Mr.
that?
Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman,
I know, but going up those stairs to the mezzanine, how wide are those staircases?
Those staircases are 4 feet wide.
Okay. We have a device that we could use to go up those stairs, so, okay. Go ahead.
I have a question. A follow-up to Mr. Simon's comment on the 3,400 people allowable per the building code, and his question or suggestion of the possibility of bringing down the size of the building. My question is, with the full-length basketball court and the academic educational classroom setting and the kitchen area, is it even possible to reduce the size of any portion of this building from that 3,400 allowable by the building code to what he was suggesting, the 800 people that are in a congregation?
I don't, it's not possible without changing the program of the building and eliminating some pieces of the building. It's not going to be possible.
'Cause the gym is probably driving most of that 3,400 people. Is that correct?
It is, yep.
Okay. And the academic classrooms, I would assume, say 10 students per classroom?
It could be, actually, the goal here is for the extra classrooms so they can have smaller class sizes in each of the classrooms. So
Smaller than 10?
I can't say what the operations could say the number, but I know that the goal of having the number of classrooms we have is so that they're less than, you're not packing those classrooms full of kids.
Yeah, I understand, yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah, I think so.
John, you have any questions before I open it up to the public, because that's next?
One thing that I heard from questioning was you were asked if there'd been any analysis regarding the sound impact of having a field or courtyard of people playing outside, especially the noise that's going to make. There's been no analysis of the sound impact. Is that correct?
No, I mean, we're required to comply with your noise ordinances, and that's, again, back to the original point of why we positioned the building the way we did, was to try to put the building between us and those residential neighbors, to try to mitigate that sound transmission from the outdoor spaces to the neighbors.
All right.
Good? Gene? Gene, you have any questions?
Yeah, well, I was just thinking about.
Come closer to the mic.
We're talking about
You're gonna have to go closer to the mic.
Yeah, we're talking about the, well, my mic isn't on anyway.
Yeah, because Laura's not gonna be able to hear you.
I can hear him right now.
Okay,
Yeah, I usually talk pretty loud.
that's better.
Anyway, a question I had was, for the classrooms, would they be used at night? And is the main reason we're talking about possibly putting this screen on was to avoid having a lot of lights coming from the classroom and being shown through the, by the neighbors?
So I can't answer when those classrooms will be used. That's an operation question. What we offered in terms of that film was exactly for that reason, to diffuse it. Again, we feel that this buffer is very strong and the light won't be seen regardless of the film, but we're willing to put the film on if there is an issue, for sure.
Okay, so you would do that rather than put like curtains or blinds or something like that you only closed at night?
We're definitely open to doing roller shades that are blackout. We're willing to do that in lieu of the frosting. The one comment from last time was about privacy, and so even during the day, I think the concern was that if there were people in that second story, that they would be able to peer down to the neighbors' yards. So the frosting film would solve that in terms of obscuring that view.
Okay.
Again, though, I have to say, I think the buffer is very strong there already.
Okay, is that it, Gene?
Yeah,
Lori,
that's it.
do you have any questions?
I just want to confirm, in the gymnasium, it's 2 full court basketball
Yes,
games could be played at one time, correct?
correct.
Okay. And that was at the request of the church? They wanted the 2 games playable at one time?
Yes, and we have a movable partition so that is flexible. If there's a basketball game going on one side, the kids could play on the other side, kind of thing, so that 2 things could be happening there separate.
But isn't it a full-size court lengthwise, and then it's 2 smaller courts that are horizontal?
No, so
No, I don't believe so, Jay.
Okay, that's what my question is, yeah.
Yeah, but when you say court, full court, what court is this? College, high school, professional? You know, there's different classifications.
yep, all 3 of these courts that are shown on this drawing are the high school length,
High school size.
which is the
Okay.
smallest of the 3,
Right.
high school, college, and pro.
That's what I thought. Okay. Did you hear that, Lori?
I did.
Okay.
Thank you.
You have any other questions?
No, not for the engineer.
Angela?
I just have one more question. I think it relates to testimony that was given at the prior meeting about the lighting. So I think you had mentioned that the lighting poles were changed. I think there were 4 original poles, but now there's 6 outdoor lighting poles. Is that right?
We originally proposed 4 50-foot poles, and we were asked to take a look at if we could reduce the height of those, and went back to Musco Lighting, and we have the option of doing 6 poles at 40 feet if the board prefers that.
Okay, and I think when we also had that discussion, it was mentioned that the implications, or I guess consequences of reducing the height of the poles is that there could possibly be, like, I think you had mentioned, if a ball were to go, it could get lost in kind of the middle of it. So I guess my concern there is that if we're reducing, we're going to reduce them and it could possibly be a risk, is there just a need for them at all?
Well, the need is separate. The need is so that you could play when it's dark out. So that's the need. But what I was referring to is that if the lights are lower as the cone of light comes down onto the field, there's the chance that the ball goes above that cone and it's hard to see.
Okay, because I think, I guess my understanding of it, if it's hard to see and it's possibly more bringing in a risk factor to being on the field, then is it even necessary to have night availability at all?
Our preference is to have the 450-foot poles. We did the analysis in response to the question from the board, so we would prefer to have the 450-foot poles. We think that that's the best, for the church.
Okay, thank you. And the operations individual will be able to speak to, I guess, the uses of the lights at night, then turning on and off, right?
Yes.
Okay, Thank
and
you.
what time they're gonna play till.
Right.
Yeah, that's all, that's gonna be a lot of questions for those persons.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. I think that's it. Professionals, any other questions? Okay, so now I'm gonna open it up to the public, so let's do this in an orderly fashion. First of all, anybody that's represented by Mr. Simon cannot ask a question. The questions have to go through him, and he sure did a good job of that today. Other than that, you're gonna have about 3-4 minutes to come up, ask a question of the applicant specifically to the testimony of engineering that we spoke about. Architect, that he spoke about today. So if it has to, if it's not a question, I'm gonna cut you off. It has to be a question. It can't be suppose this, suppose that. It has to be A, B, C, right on point.
And,
Okay.
and speak clearly into the microphone, your full name and your address.
Thank you. Okay, so with that being said, let's have hands up so I can see how many people want to come up. I said all that and nobody's coming up?
All right, we have one
Oh,
person.
one person, come on up.
And grab the microphone there.
You know how the rules go, you've spoken before.
Scott Goldstein, 24 East Lawn Drive, Homedale, New Jersey. I live just north of the church. Okay?
I'm sorry, could you spell your last name, please?
Goldstein, Goldstein.
Thank you.
Although you didn't speak directly to this, it was on the variance that you're putting in a turf field. And I'd like to know what the sub-base is made out of.
I think the engineer who's coming up next could answer that question. That's not, I'm an architect, so I don't know what that answer is, but the engineer will be able to answer it for you.
And that's happening tonight?
Yeah, maybe. Okay, we'll try.
Okay.
I'm only kidding. Okay, any other questions for the architect? Okay, none being, a public session for that is closed. Okay, next.
We're now going to recall Josh Seawald, who was the engineer who previously testified.
So, Sal, Josh, he was not here in April, right?
No.
So I'm just gonna swear you in again since you started the new year for that second hearing. You just swear affirm the testimony you're about to give is nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Okay, and you already gave your credentials, so.
So some of the board asked questions that relate to you and not the architect, so if you remember them and you can address them during your presentation, that would be great.
No problem, Mr. Chairman.
So, Josh, just by way of brief introduction, you testified some time ago, and since that initial testimony, revised plans were submitted that you did not testify to, correct?
That's correct.
And can you just generally summarize the nature of the plan revisions that were made?
Certainly, and good evening, everybody. Again, Josh Seawald from Dynamic Engineering Consultants. We're the firm that prepared the civil drawings that have been before you. Essentially, I last testified before you back in December 2024, and what we did in March of 2025, a few months ago, we did an itemized response to the board and to the public addressing any remaining technical comments from your board planner as well as your board engineer. What does that mean? The revised plans that went in the door, the building size and location is exactly the same. The existing parking lot that's there is identical. That has been testified to the past few meetings. The curb cuts on the DOT road is exactly the same. That permit is still valid associated with them. Essentially what we did in the March revision was address all of the technical comments and questions from your professionals. Many of them associated with grading, drainage, utilities, and anything we could provide for them in ancillary detail for lighting and landscaping. So if you take a look at the recent review letters, both by your engineer and your planner dated in May and June, you'll see a lot of items are crossed out. That means that the comments that they've asked for from the applicant's professional team, we address them, and that we hopefully have satisfied their comments, questions, or concerns. I, of course, have a site plan rendering that I'll bring up shortly so you can see the overall property. I was certainly taking notes, Mr. Chairman, listening to some of the civil engineering question. I'll be happy to address them shortly. But overall, wanted to just kick off by good to be back. We resubmitted in March. We addressed some of the questions from your professionals. And have those documents ready to discuss.
When you say you address some of them, does that mean you still have more to address, or are those you're asking for clarification on?
No, the items that I think are left, Mr. Chairman, are either notes and variances and design waivers, things that can't be addressed, they would be addressed through testimony.
Is that correct, Bill?
We still have some questions about the stormwater that's under review at this point.
Stormwater?
Stormwater.
Okay. Are you gonna speak on that, or is there another person for stormwater?
That's me.
Okay. That's a big one, because we have a stream corridor there, so.
Yeah, and so what we did in the March itemized response, and again, for the exhibit that's before you on the board, this is the site plan rendering overlaid onto the landscape plan and then colored for presentation purposes. You certainly see the aerial.
Wait, has that been submitted or discussed?
Yeah, I don't remember seeing that.
This was definitely submitted, but why don't we mark it because it's been tweaked since we provided.
A9?
A9?
So identify that for the record, please.
Certainly, it is site plan rendering prepared by my firm, today's date.
And you'll agree to provide a
USB, absolutely.
Okay.
Oh, here it is. I do have it.
So I do remember back in December talking about stormwater management in great detail. What we tried to do in our March resubmission was address a lot of the questions and comments from your engineer. Since then, we have also successfully obtained a Freehold Soil Conservation District approval for soil erosion and sediment control standards. What does that mean? Freehold Soil has reviewed in great detail our design drawings, our stormwater report, and they have given us a permit, which means that they are satisfied that our stormwater facility complies with the state standards. Certainly there may be some additional items from your engineer, which I'm confident we can address. I think we've satisfied, I'll put a random percentage on, about 95% of the stormwater comments that were in his professional review letter, but happy to answer any questions that you or the public may have about stormwater management.
Do you want us to stop and ask? Is that what?
Just because you brought it up,
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
I wanted to.
Bill, you have some, so let's do it as we go along.
Basically, I think they're more minor in nature that we can work out as a condition of approval.
Minor?
Minor.
Okay.
Engineering, tweaking things to make sure that it does work. It's just minor tweaks to make it
So
comply.
is this something above what Freehold has said?
Well, ultimately, it's up to the towns. On your MS4 permit from DEP, the town's responsible to make sure that this complies with the stormwater regulations. And whether we have a DEP approval or Freehold approval, we still have to review it.
Okay. And then what about our community and organizations like our environmental protection, our
Environmental Commission?
Environmental Commission, yeah. Did they send any letters to you or anything?
I haven't received an updated one, sir, since the October 8th, and we have addressed those requests.
Okay,
I haven't
so-
seen a new letter from them.
Okay. All right. Okay, go ahead. I guess we're.
So, one of the questions that was raised at the last meeting was the buffering.
That's right.
And I'd like you, I don't know if this exhibit that we marked A9 would be adequate for that, or if not, something else, but can you discuss in more detail the buffering that's proposed, particularly as it relates to the residents to the north?
Absolutely. So this exhibit's a good starting point, and then we have a couple extra exhibits. I do remember at the November hearing, as well as just talking to the applicant's team the past few meetings, about the sensitivity of the buffer. So we'll stay on this exhibit. This is site plan rendering. Located to the left side of the page is to the north, right side of the page is to the south. The orange box is the proposed recreational facility the church is looking to do, and you can see that Route 34 is on the top side of the page running in that north-south direction. The darker green colors that you see all around are all of the new improvements, such as stormwater management, landscaping, and the soccer field. So from a landscaping standpoint, what we decided to do is we decided to enhance the landscaping plan. This rendering is the site plan overlaid again onto the landscape plan, colored for presentation purposes, and then also dropped on the aerial so you can see everything that's around there that's existing today that will not be modified associated with this application. We'd like to say that the landscaping plan has been modified and increased so that we have, and I'm going to run some numbers through, 6 shade trees, 6 ornamental trees, and another 188 evergreen trees. You can imagine the vast majority of all those 188 evergreen trees.
What caliber and how high?
The evergreen trees, they start at 6 to 8 feet at initial planting. And they are located behind the existing 50-foot conservation easement that was required by this municipality when you did the subdivision located to the north to the west. So these buffering and additional plantings that we added are on the back side of that 50 feet that's located on the residence. So, and that's just the trees. In addition to that, there's another 98 evergreen shrubs and another 191 deciduous shrubs. So the revised landscape plan, based on comments from your professionals, my memory from listening to the board and the public, we've increased and enhanced the landscaping plan to have 200 total trees and 289 total shrubs. The next thing that we did, and I do remember you, Mr. Chairman, talking about that balloon test, but what we did do since the last time I was here to testify, we grabbed LiDAR information that is publicly available topographic information and dropped it into our civil drawings, aligned it with our existing topo that we have on site, and then we created sightline exhibits of some of the houses that are located to the north, and then we dropped in the existing height of the trees that are in that 50-foot wide buffer that is already existing out there on the residential line, and then we added our proposed trees. And those are on some new exhibits that I'd like to share with the board, if that's all right with you, Sal.
So do we have these exhibits?
No, we're gonna mark them and then provide them. So again, to clarify, this will be, it's 3 images. It's called Sight Line Profile Exhibit, prepared by my firm, today's date.
And we're up to A10. Are you gonna mark all 3 as one exhibit, or you wanna do 3 separate?
I'll defer to the board how their preference
One
is.
is fine.
Yeah.
All right, so it's a site plan,
Sight Line Profile
sight
Exhibit.
line profile consisting of 3 sheets.
That's right.
Okay.
And the whole purpose of this exhibit, everybody, is what it does is it takes the site plan drawings that not just have the horizontal layout of where the building and the parking is, it drops on the topographic conditions, not just of the existing property, but also our proposed grading. Where's that finished floor elevation going to be set at? Where's the grading around it? And then, so I wasn't trespassing at all, we brought in public LiDAR information. So the survey information we have on our site is real data captured by surveying techniques. We then utilized public information, so I would never walk on someone else's property without permission. We then took that data and we put it into this plan. That's what is showing on the top of this exhibit. You see the recreational building that we have, the bold lines that you see between the building and those circles.
Can you blow that up a little bit more?
Certainly can.
And, yeah, that's better.
A bold line is how you read a grading plan, for anyone in the public who doesn't know. That's the proposed elevation of the property. Our finished floor elevation is approximately 165 on the first half of the building, 162.5 on the bottom half. That's when you heard my colleague, Mr. Collins, talking about how that basketball area was sunken lower than the front. And then these are contours. Why are those contours placed where they are? It's how you then tie in the existing grades into your proposed development grades. All of these circles that you see here have been placed next to that 50-foot wide existing buffer. Those plantings that have been placed are placed in areas that Dynamics Landscape Architect found possible holes in. But as you'll also see, there's existing vegetation that goes beyond our property line, and we do not want to disturb those areas. What we decided to do is add those trees again on the backside to further widen the width of that existing buffer. So the sightline profile exhibit, you take all the vertical data and then you come here and you strike one of these red lines. And this creates that cross section. And we went to a couple of the back of the houses that were probably most sensitive to the northern side. And that's what some of these exhibits are down here. Again, the height of the building is approximated based off of how tall a general house is. The elevation is located over here, and that's real vertical data. Obviously, the house is not 230 feet tall. It's relative based off the topographic conditions. These heights of these existing trees, which are located and identified in black, those were obtained through surveying methods on our property. We have GPS robots on stands that can shoot the height of existing trees and vegetation. If you see any green color, that's the proposed trees. The smaller tree is honestly the height of it at initial planting, that's 6 to 8 feet. That just gives the board and the public an idea of how tall some of the existing trees are in that 50-foot wide buffer that's been there for quite some time. At maturity, the trees that we have selected would reach approximately this high. And then, of course, you have the building that is also to scale in regards to the height. So the whole point of a sightline profile is between someone's house and between the building that we're proposing, is there an adequate and tall enough buffer that will block the visibility? It is our opinion, based off of our property research, our topographic conditions that we have, that existing 50-foot wide buffer that's on the residential is substantial today and will block the visibility of the building. However, we absolutely agree that there's probably some holes that are out there. Maybe some trees have been diseased, some have died, maybe there's been some clearing, some have fallen down, etc. That is why the applicant is putting a supplemental tree buffer behind and on their property, so that there truly is a visible barrier at the bottom level should you be standing on the property at the bottom. So we created 3 exhibits showing that in all different areas.
The sight line to the house, the point where it starts at the house, where on the house is that located?
We did it on the back side, assuming you were looking out of a window.
Which window, ground floor or second floor?
Second floor, sir. And if anyone has ever worked on a sight line or have seen it on previous applications, the higher window is more important in my opinion because you're now sitting on a pedestal. If you were on the ground, that's many times why you maybe have a 6-foot high fence resident to resident, because someone who maybe only be 5.5 feet tall, you can't look over the fence in the distance. That's the whole point of line of sight. So if anything, our plan, in my opinion, is conservative, that we brought the neighbor's view from their second floor building, and it's still, as you can see, the existing trees are substantially above that line of sight. I'm very sorry for zooming in.
So what happens in the wintertime?
Many of those trees out there, sir, are evergreens as well. So you'll see the 2 different logos, more the branchy type or more deciduous that has the leaves, and then the very wide piney shaped ones, those are your evergreens. And like we mentioned, any areas that may not have any existing evergreen trees, we have backed it up with our own evergreens to provide that buffer.
Okay.
That was all the supplemental engineering testimony, Mr. Chair. Those were the questions were raised last time he testified or at the last hearing. That's why we wanted him to respond. But he does need to be finished cross-examination and plus answer any questions that you might
Okay. All right, so board members, I'll start over here from Angela. You have any engineering type questions?
I don't think so. I'm a little concerned with the reliance on the existing trees until the new ones reach maturity. I know you mentioned that some of them are evergreens, but during the last session that we had, I know there was a public comment that mentioned that in the winter they're just branches out there. So that's just a concern that I do have with the trees and the buffers there.
I do agree with you, ma'am, that on in this existing, and I'll come to the site plan rendering. I'm very sorry, it's not my computer, a little touchy. Yes, there are many trees in that existing 50-foot buffer that are deciduous, which means that there's leaves on them. There are certainly evergreen trees out there spread throughout that 50-foot buffer. And as you can see here, the dark color, that's all existing vegetation, which is an extension of that residential buffer that we do not intend on modifying. So if there are any areas that may have a hole right in the wintertime, we're trying to double up the vegetation behind it, and all of our trees will be evergreen trees. To refresh your memory, ma'am, one of my comments in December of 24, we had a question, someone said, why can't it be tucked behind the existing facility? We went into about that there's wetlands and stormwater basins and streams and stream corridors, but one of the reasons that Mr. Collins and I worked with the church kind of selecting this location is because a building can act as a buffer between what is an existing parking lot. So when they came to us as the site plan design engineer and the planning consultant as well, we said to the church, listen, you got approval for this very large parking lot due to the success of your congregation coming in. But there you have this green space now that it's just out there today. If you go out there today, it's just farm field and there's a couple nets up where the kids are playing right now for the existing soccer. That parking lot right now has nothing against it. So as this congregation continues to grow over the years, from whenever it was previously approved till today, that building can act as a separation between an improvement that's already been approved by this board. And that's exactly why we placed it where we wanted to place it. That building will act in itself as a buffer. I'm not saying it's a nice 50-foot wide, beautiful treescape, but I do believe that the way that we laid out the building so that the entrance is facing the parking lot and the back side of the building has no activity on it, that will then give a good buffer. Additionally to that, we're 97 feet at the smallest point from the building to our property line, and then you have a 50-foot residential conservation easement that they can't modify. So there is good real estate in between to make sure there's a separation from that first structure, and then there's another few hundred feet before you get to the outdoor activity, which is the plaza entrance and the parking lot, the trash enclosure, and where that loading facility is.
Let me ask a question about stormwater.
Please.
All of the impervious coverage, I'm talking about the building, and I'm not sure if the turf is impervious or not.
We model it as impervious coverage to be conservative.
So
And the reason we do that, sir, is because underneath it is an under drain.
Okay, so is all of that water going where? How is it going to the basin?
Through a piping conveyance system, and it ends up over here in our 2 above ground facilities. And yeah, you can see my screen. There we go.
So does that connect with the other unit, the other one just above it?
No, that's a separate facility handling the parking lot and other amenities on site.
And where does the overflow go from that if it's needed?
It goes, we tie in here. Essentially goes overland the flow of the field, and then it'll make its way towards the wetlands as well as the stream.
Is that the 100-year flood calculation?
Do we model the
Yeah.
base? Yeah, so not only do we model the basin for the 210 and 100-year storm, in 2023, the DEP asked us to model it for the year 2100. So it's not even just the 100-year storm, it's the 100-year storm for when we project it to rain in the year 2100. So there's a pretty big factor of safety in the modern stormwater regulations.
Okay, thank you. Jason?
No questions for me.
Lori?
Again, I'm going to go back to the signage, which I know I seem obsessed with. The signs are facing 34, the 24 by 21 sign.
I'd have to bring up the architect to answer that question.
Oh,
I'm sorry, what?
that's an architect question.
Sorry.
But I asked, okay, I apologize, because I asked it that term, and it's under the engineering report, I was told.
All right.
The elevations have the location.
All right, you can come back and answer that question for Lori, please.
Sure.
The signs do face Route 34.
Did you hear that?
They do face Route 34. And how late do they stay lit? Because I know in the past we've had issues in the parking lot with the lights that can be visible from 34. So how late does the sign stay lit?
Yeah,
Operational question.
that's an operational question. Yes, I
Yeah,
can't
we
answer
got
that
a lot
one.
of operational questions with lighting and all of that, so that's gonna,
Okay.
keep that on your list to ask it
Okay.
again. Go ahead, John?
Going back to the concern about how there's a number of trees that are leafed, and I heard you say that your intention is to double up on the vegetation. Does that mean that what are you going to plant in terms of doubling up on the vegetation? Is it going to be all evergreens?
Yes, and some of those species of, we picked 9 different types so that it looks more like a natural forest, and it's not just the same plant that looks a little bit more cookie cutter that you would see at an industrial facility. I'll just read out some of them. You do have American holly, Norway spruce, green giant arborvitae, and green giant arborvitae, just like its name says. The point of it is because it grows very tall and wide, so it starts to blend together to create that buffer. In addition to that, it is very fast growing as well. Usually you'll get over a foot in growth during those seasons. So the trees that we picked are well diverse so that you don't look at the same tree that looks like it's very industrialized. It's spaced apart so that the bottom connects together very quickly, but it's given enough room so that it can grow tall as well.
Approximately how big are the evergreens and shrubs you're going to plant? Approximately how big will they be at the time you plant them? Because I know that, like you said, for example, the evergreen, you can get a foot of growth in maybe a year, but what size are they going to be when they're planted? So
our landscaping plan is calling for 6 to 8 feet. You give the range based on the nursery having a little bit of space in that. So 6 to 8 feet is common to bring a tree there.
And if you can remind me, what was the footage that we had up at least a couple of minutes ago showing the trees as it is right now? Yes.
Yeah, so this one exhibit, the bottom of this grade is approximately 180, and the top is at 230, which is common. I would say the existing vegetation ranges between 40 and 60 feet within that 50-foot wide buffer on the residential houses.
And what you intend to put immediately in front, of it to double up on the vegetation, they're going to be about 4 to 6 feet. You said
6 to 8 feet.
6
sir.
to 8, excuse me.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Anything else, John?
That's it for now.
And just to follow up on John's question, are any of these species of trees deer resistant? Are they all deer? Because there are a lot of deer in that area.
If there are any that your professional planner thinks that are not deer resistant, we can change out the species. The
arborvitaes, they'll clean that up.
Understood.
Yeah, and there might be a kind of arborvitae that's deer resistant, but if you don't look for that, you'll have lollipops.
Let your landscape person that's doing your use all deer resistant shrubbery and trees and everything.
We could do that.
Because otherwise it'll look like a disaster at the first season.
Understood.
Okay, Gene?
You asked my question.
Okay. All right. So it's time for our Mr. Simon to come on up. So I guess last time you can ask questions from last time too if you didn't finish, right?
Yeah, I mean, the problem is that they're introducing these new exhibits for the first time tonight.
Yes.
No handouts. I can barely see them. And I'll give $1 to anyone who can read, all the notations and the comments on that colorized rendering that's up on the screen right now.
You can always come back, but do the best you can with what you have.
Yeah, I just want to just be clear that I want to have an opportunity to look at these profiles that were introduced for the first time tonight.
All professionals are available right to the end of the hearing.
Thank you. Mr. Sewell, good evening.
How you doing, Mr. Simon?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Good.
So, there were some questions asked by the board at the end there. Just describe how the site currently, is proposed to drain.
At a high level,
Yep.
the stormwater collected from the soccer field, the stormwater collected from the building, the plaza, the loading space, and some of the parking lot will be captured in our new above-ground stormwater management facility.
And is there an outflow structure from that if it overflows?
We call it an overflow spillway that is located along the eastern property line, the eastern section of the basin that flows towards the wetlands, the stream corridor, as I mentioned a little bit ago.
And you mentioned a 50-foot wide conservation easement. Can you just identify on this plan? I guess this is A9,
Yes,
right?
I believe it's A9.
Can you just show us where that is?
It's located here. So it's from the shared property line of the applicant and the residents. And when we pulled the filed maps, not just of our property, of the surrounding properties, we identified a 50-foot wide conservation easement that was associated with the subdivision.
Is any part of that 50-foot wide conservation easement affecting the development of your property?
No, I don't believe so.
And are you familiar with the terms and conditions of that conservation easement?
I don't have it in front of me.
Are you familiar with the conditions as to the ability to replace and plant trees within that buffer area?
I'm unaware of those conditions.
And with regard to the LiDAR information that you received, how old is that information, the topographic information?
Within a year?
And with regard to the sightline profile exhibits, you took them, and I'll take a look at them later, but did you take them, you took them from the homes, the actual structures of the homes?
Correct.
Okay, so you didn't take them from any backyard area, pool area, or otherwise, correct?
The backyard and pool area, for example, on Exhibit A10, I believe, is shown aerial, and it's also represented in the profile, but we did not model any of those structures. What we tried to do, again, from LiDAR and GIS information, we took the location of the house, we took an approximate height of that second floor window, and then this is all to scale based on horizontal data, bringing it into our site plan.
And I noticed that with all these exhibits that you're presenting, you haven't presented any exhibits of actual photographs of the existing conditions of those trees within that 50-foot conservation easement, correct?
Correct. I did not bring photos of the existing trees.
Okay. And you're not an arborist, correct?
I am not an arborist.
And you have not done any type of assessment to determine within that 50-foot conservation easement area which, if any, of those trees are dead, diseased, or dying, correct?
I have not.
Okay. And you have not done an evaluation. You were talking about, very eloquently filling in all the spaces with these 6 to 8 foot evergreens. You haven't done a space assessment as to post installation of those 6 to 8 foot evergreens. How many spaces will still remain from those residential properties and the views from those residential properties to the building and the other improvements on your site, correct?
I'll be honest, Mr. Simon, I'm not following that question.
Okay, you haven't done any type of evaluation of the view shed from the various residential properties once those 6 to 8 foot evergreens are installed, correct?
No, I believe that the sightline profile exhibit contemplates that. It has the proposed trees at initial planting and then at full maturity based off of that species.
Right, that's based on a diagram, correct? I'm talking about actual looking, because I've looked at photographs right along that 50-foot conservation easement to and you have not determined how many how much space and view shed and exposure of that building there will be even after those 6 to 8 foot evergreens are installed, correct? You haven't done that evaluation yet, right?
I'll be honest with you, sir. I'm unaware of what this evaluation you're talking about, but what I can tell you is that Dynamic Engineering's in-house landscape architect walked this property and then designed the landscaping plan that's presented before the board this evening. And the specific species and placement was due based off of that site investigation and walk along the property line. If there's a sample or the type of exhibit you're looking for, I can certainly try to mention that, but I'm unaware of any type of engineering view shed description. Our world always lives in site plan exhibits, surveys, site investigations, and then proposing a landscape design plan.
That landscape architect that you referred to that's in your dynamic office, that person has not testified with regard to this application, correct? Correct? right? And they haven't submitted any type of report in connection with this application, correct?
They're on the landscape.
I understand they're on the plan, but did they submit a separate report in support of this application?
No.
Right? Yeah, okay. And you don't have any knowledge as to for how long those 6 to 8 foot evergreens how long it will take for them to reach maturity, correct?
Each species is a little bit different, but
Right.
some of the speedier ones will get a foot a year, and other ones may only be 3 to 6 inches a year.
Okay, and that's based on your discussion with your landscape architect in-house, correct?
And being a professional engineer that testifies on landscaping drawings on a nightly basis.
And with regard to the environmental condition of this property, are you aware of whether a phase 1 or phase 2 evaluation was conducted?
My firm has not prepared a phase 1 or a phase 2.
Okay, have you reviewed a phase 1 or phase 2 in connection with your participation in this application?
Yes, we have.
And were there any areas of concern that came out of either the phase 1 or the phase 2 to your knowledge?
No.
And with regard to stormwater, did you submit to the board any type of test pit evaluation?
Yes, within the appendix of our stormwater management, groundwater recharge, and water quality analysis, there is our, it's a report by my firm that does test pits that gets the seasonal high groundwater and then tests the permeability of the soil at different levels.
Okay, did you participate in those evaluations?
I was part of the design and the report writing.
Okay,
Was
but-
I on site digging the hole? No, sir.
And what's the groundwater depth in the area of the building?
Of the building?
Mhm.
We did not do test pits underneath the building. We do test pits for the stormwater facility.
Right. So you didn't do any. So what? Let me ask you. What's the depth to groundwater in the area of the stormwater facility?
Groundwater or seasonal high?
Seasonal high. We'll start with that.
The bottom of basin is elevation 15850. Just bear with me.
You said that's the bottom of the basin?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Bear with me one more minute. I don't have all of the boring locations in front of me. However, at a minimum, it will be 2.5 feet. And I know based on the gradient of the existing grade towards the northern side, because it is much higher in elevation, the seasonal high was at least 6 feet lower. As you head towards the southern side, closer towards the wetlands, the existing basin and the stream, it was within 3 to 4 feet of the bottom of basin, approximately.
Okay, and that's all in your stormwater report?
Yes, sir.
And what about, have you dug test pits for your septic field?
Yes, many.
And did you do any tests as to the perk rates of the soils in the proposed septic field area?
Absolutely.
Okay, and that's been submitted to the board?
We have been partially submitting documents because the septic facility is more than 2,000 gallons per day. There's a process that you go with the DEP. We are going through what's called the NGIPTES process. That's the technical evaluation of the leach fields and the treatment plant that we're proposing. Copies of that have been submitted to the board.
In terms of, I asked some questions about the lighting,
Mhm.
and the architect deferred to you. Can you just show the board what wall-mounted lightings or lights being proposed on the building facing the residential neighbors?
Certainly. So on the northern facade of the building, we modeled 2 wall packs over the door locations. I believe I testified in December, and if I didn't, I'll clarify. Those wall packs will be emergency lit only due to building code requirements, so that should you open that emergency exit door, then the light would be available for it. There is no lights on the northern side facade line facing our residence that will ever be on. And there's two back here. There's two doors back there. Then when we move to the western facade, there again a similar situation. There's two doors in the southern corner. Those two will be controlled and will be building code and fire life safety purposes only. There are 3 wall pack lights that surround the loading area, and those lights will be on at, they could shut off during the post closing of the building. You'll hear more from the operations when the building will close, but those are not the same as the other northern side that are just motion sensor. These lights are meant to illuminate the pavement area for safe circulation of the vehicle.
Have you done any type of evaluation as to whether those lights will be visible from the residential property lines?
We selected a light that is downward facing, forward throw, and has low illumination. So in my professional opinion, based off of the lights, the proposed landscaping that we have around it, the new buffering that we have across the facility, and the existing 10 to 15 feet of buffer on our property, and then the next 50 feet, I do not believe you will be able to see the 3 wall packs that are illuminating the loading area.
You'll know that there's lighting, though, on in that vicinity if I'm standing at the property line of those residential buildings and looking at that area, correct?
When you say residential line, where would you...
Residential line to the north. Common property line.
So
This is a residential zone.
So this northern property line.
Correct.
I do not believe you will see these 3 lights. It's blocked by the building and this architectural bump out that we have here.
Yeah, but there's also homes below there on an angle.
Yes, sir.
So you're talking north, but there they are right there.
Yeah, I
So-
believe that the western residential property line homeowners will not see the 3 wall packs that are on the building facing down at the loading
All
facility.
right, we'll talk about that when operations and limit the lights, times, and all that.
Certainly
kind
can
of
do that.
Yeah, and there were a couple questions, I believe, asked by board members in terms of noise, and Dynamic hasn't conducted or commissioned any type of acoustic evaluation, correct?
No, sir, correct.
And with, I'm just going, even though I'm just looking at this for the first time, I'm just confused about something on your colorized
Sure.
aerial. So behind your proposed evergreens to the north is what? What is in that green area?
That's
No,
all-
no, no,
I'm
like
sorry.
along the common property line, but on your side of the property.
This area?
Yep.
That's proposed landscaping.
Okay, and what about beyond that, going to the west? Keep going?
Up.
To the
Yeah,
west?
To the west.
Going up.
Going
Going down.
down.
This is all proposed landscaping?
Yeah, and then keep
And
going?
That's existing vegetation.
And how is that existing vegetation going to be maintained given the proposed plantings on your plan? How are you going to access it?
You can, I'm a little confused by the question. How do I access existing vegetation?
How do you, well, you're putting these plants,
Yeah.
these evergreens in front,
Yeah.
correct? To
Mhm.
the south.
Yes.
And then have you thought about how the landscaping to the north, existing greenery is going to be maintained? Is you going to be able to get back in there?
Absolutely. You could walk back there.
And with regard to your proposed plantings, you haven't done an evaluation as to the drip lines of the existing trees within the 50-foot conservation area, and how much those root systems extend into your property, correct?
I would not know the first place to begin, Mr. Simon, on evaluating an underground root system into our property line. However, when we do a survey, we do try to collect the drip line, as you mentioned. And we do that through 2 methods. We do that through shooting the edge of the tree, and we also do that through aerial mapping. So we do have the general location of drip lines throughout the property, but I would not know where the root system is.
Okay, so, well, let's even talk about drip lines. I know you're not showing it on this exhibit, but how much of the drip lines of the trees on the adjacent residential properties encroach into your property? Have you done that evaluation?
I haven't done a tree survey on our neighbors' lots. I would say that due to the existing nature of the property, there's some areas along the northern and western side that have never been developed before. So I wouldn't say that the existing trees that are there are just a result of the 50-foot wide conservation easement. Maybe they're just overall existing trees from many years before that subdivision.
Right, but you haven't done any type of evaluation as to suffocation of the roots of the existing tree systems, correct? Along that northern property line, right? You're not aware of anything, right, that was done
I'm
in
not
terms of
aware.
that evaluation, correct?
No, sir.
All right. Subject to reviewing these new exhibits tonight, maybe having Mr. Sewell come back for some additional questions. I have no further questions at this time.
Wow, I was wondering if I was gonna cut you off at 9. Thank you.
Want to take a look at what he's currently presented.
That's fine. Okay, next is going to be the public. So if anybody has any questions, raise your hand and you can come up. Wow, this is like one of the best publics we ever had. Go ahead, come on up. You had to spoil it, huh?
Scott Goldstein, 24 East Lawn Drive, East New Jersey. Are you the right person to ask about the turf field?
Depends on your questions, but fire away.
What is the, are you using tire crumb?
So the dynamic engineering, we're the civil site engineer. We work with.
Well, civil is in the ground.
100%. What we look at is the section of that system. The actual material product of the rubber pellets, I wouldn't know, sir. What we do have to do, however, though, is we have to make sure that that artificial turf field is modeled as impervious coverage for stormwater reasons. And then there was a lot of testimony back in November about where do those little pellets go. So we had to testify and provide in our drawings, stormwater report, and itemized responses that we will have guards on all of the yard inlets and piping so that those little rubber pellets don't end up going downstream and into other areas. So I'm knowledgeable about it because it is part of my site plan set, but the actual material selection of the rubber, I couldn't begin to tell you.
So from what you're implying, is there a containment system that contains all that as an impervious area for that?
We absolutely model it as impervious because if you are familiar with turf fields, it sounds like you are a little bit. There's multiple media layers, right? And then underneath that, it's wrapped with a geogrip fabric, and then there's an underdrain underneath it as well. So it will not have a direct connection to the subsurface soils where the potential groundwater could be. It is a fully contained system. We have to collect it from a stormwater standpoint and then pipe it out to the rest of our on-site system.
And are you aware that the material that's used for that was based on the tire crumb has lead and has 17 other known carcinogens in them?
I'm unaware of what you may be referencing.
Okay, it's public knowledge.
Okay, thank you for your questions. Any other questions from our board? Lori? Okay, so,
I don't have anything.
that's what I want to make sure. Closing public comment, questions on the engineering that was testified today. Come on back up, I guess.
So that's all we have for tonight. We just need to get a new date so we can bring our operations person, and then.
Okay, so there is one thing that I'm not sure if we want to do it now or wait, but we will have to do an on-site. So what's the next date for the hearing? Let's see how far it goes, because then we're going to deal with people on vacation and all that.
We have September 3rd, September 17th, October 15th.
So what do you think?
So, Mr. Seawald says September 17th is good for him. It's far enough away that we could plan. 17th is good for the church team. And we're looking at Mr. Simon.
Okay, so board members, while they're figuring that out, what do you think about doing an on-site sometime in early September, I guess? So we can go there, and this will give them plenty of time to get it ready.
Same thing like a Saturday morning?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
Sounds
it could be during the week, because it gets dark later.
Yeah, it's always challenging. We're in a city.
Yeah.
by
Just,
Saturday.
Mr. Chair, suggestion, can we do on-site on the same day, on 17th?
Excuse me?
We can do on-site on 17th on the same day.
What?
No, that would be on a Wednesday night.
Yeah.
You know what, Marty made a suggestion, maybe we ought to wait for operations. So is that what's gonna happen on the 17th?
Yes,
Yeah, because we probably won't be ready to come to a
we can
conclusion by that
schedule it
day
after
anyway.
that, then that's fine.
Yeah, so sometime at that meeting, we'll talk about an on-site date. And then maybe we'll have more information to go by.
Right, so we would just request an announcement, so we don't have to renotice for the
Yeah.
17th, please.
So we're gonna carry this application till September 17th. There wouldn't be another notice sent out, so put it on your calendars. And everybody have a wonderful summer.
And 7 PM, same location, correct?
7 PM in this location.
I just need a motion and second.
Motion?
A motion to close the meeting?
No, not to
No,
close.
to
I mean,
carry.
Carry it. Carry it. You're going a
I
little too
did.
quickly.
Motion to carry the St. Mina's Coptic Church to September 17th, 2025.
Second?
I'll second the motion.
Second by Angela. Okay.
And also, time extension is June 30th was on
So
this
we'll put
application.
Extension through September 30th, is that fine?
That's fine.
Do you need a letter, or you don't need?
I will send it over.
Oh, you will, okay, thank you. Have a great summer, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you.
The motion to adjourn, please?
Well, no professional reports?
Motion.
Let's make sure there's no professional reports. Anything? Okay. Motion,
Motion to adjourn.
seconded by Gene.
Thank you. Have a good night.